Hello and welcome to Behind the Mask. This is the first in a series where we're going to be speaking to the creators of some of wrestling's most iconic masks and how those masks have really brought those characters to life. And for our first episode, we are lucky enough to be joined by mask-making royalty, the one and only Stanley Sherman from Mask Art Company. Stanley, thank you again so much for taking the time out to be here with us today.
It's a pleasure, and it's an honor to be interviewed by Carl and Anthony.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah.
So I think we start if we could. Obviously, you've been the architect really behind so many iconic masks in the world of wrestling. Not just in the world of wrestling, but obviously for us in the world of wrestling, a lot of the ones we remember as kids, such as Mick Foley's Mankind mask or Abyss and the like. So the first question I'd ask, if I could, is if you could just sort of give us an idea of how you first sort of began working sort of with the world of wrestling, or how that sort of the business of your mask sort of turned into that world.
Yeah. Well, I believe the wrestler, it's the fault of, I believe the wrestler's name was King Tut. Okay, very large fellow, and the Undertaker, and he was doing that leg drop from the top of the ring where he lands on his head with his knee cocked, and evidently he was an inch or so off.
Right.
Okay, and then Judy, who was the contract artist that was in charge of costumes and artistic stuff and a whole bunch of stuff, found me, and they explained the situation to me, that they wanted a special mask to protect Mark, the Undertaker, his face, so he can come in sooner. And because she saw that I made leather masks, she thought, okay, this is a protective substance. And they tried all kinds of things, baseball masks, hockey masks, all this stuff. Nothing worked. And she asked me to design if I would be interested. Now, the first time, about 5 years, maybe 6 years earlier, they had contacted me, asked for all these photos. And of course, back then, it was all slides. It wasn't this quick internet computer.
Oh, of course, yeah.
So it was money making copies of the slides and sending them, and did all this work, heard nothing from them. So when I heard from them, I kind of rolled my eyes and said, okay. And they didn't have the best reputation with artists, okay? So I kind of said, okay, I'll tell you what. Okay, you give me $50, pay my train fare, I'll come up to Stanford and talk to you, okay? And so I came up, they picked me up in a limo. They sent a limo to the train station and picked me up. That was the only time, okay? And they showed me 4 drawings, done by, I guess, their in-house artist or another contract artist that they have. Beautiful drawings, wonderful work. As far as actually making these, they wouldn't fit. They were more cartoon. Okay. And I'm a theatrical mask maker. My base is theater. I trained in Paris at a school called École Jacques Lecoq Theater Mime Movement with lots of great people, graduated and influenced theater from around the world. So I know theater. I looked at it from a theatrical standpoint and I said, okay, well, this one will kind of work, but let's get rid of this vein that's running through here, because I knew it would not work. Well, they insisted on the vein and I said, okay, well, let's go with this one, but I have to change a few things. And they said, okay, and they said how much, and, we agreed on a price, and of course I should have added about 3 zeros to it. So I made it, I sculpted it, and you always sculpt something, and you add something for the client to take off because they need to participate in the sculpture. So you don't want them to participate and fuck something up. Okay, so that's what I did, and Judy was the person I mainly dealt with all the artistic stuff, and she was a joy to work with. Mark came in. He had trouble finding my buzzer, and they were concerned about, but he connected, and he came up, and I lived 3.5 flights up, and he laid down. I made a mold of his face, and I put on my father's jazz CD tape, gave him organic tea, and while his face was being molded in plaster bandages, he fell asleep. So what you want to do is you want to make the person comfortable at home, and so it's, I learned this in Paris, when I lived in a Volkswagen bus with 3 other people, as I studied, and it was like a central location in front of American Center for Students and Artists. And I learned about, you always offer somebody something to drink or eat when they come in. It makes them feel at home. So, it's a standard hospitality. And so anyway, I sculpted, the mask, the original mask is white with these red veins. And I did incredible detailed work for the veins, which they insisted on. And it's exactly what they wanted. And then I saw it, and they spray painted it gray. Which is, of course, it should have been, because, the white probably messed up the video lights and all kinds of stuff. And theatrically, it worked best as a very neutral color, because I make masks that change. So when you wear them, the tilt of the head, the movement creates energy and a story unto itself. Okay, and there's different kinds of mask makers. I mean, looks like you're going to interview at least 3 different mask makers, and we all make totally different styles of masks, which is really wonderful. So the public can get a sense of different ways we approach. But so it started with that. It was success. They were going to do all kinds of, the marketing people were going nuts over it, because it was a merchandising gold mine, for them. And I was promised a back end, thing, and I put all these protective pads in, into the mask to protect his face, specially positioned. And then it got out to the other wrestlers that there was protective padding in his masks. So everybody started whacking him in the face. and of course, somebody, whacked him in the eye and cut his eye, cut his eyelid or a little, and so of course, Mark wanted to take the mask off, as powerful as it was, as successful, and of course, the merchandise people were very disappointed. And so, so I forgot about it, so I said, okay, great, Then about 3-4 weeks later, I get another call from either Debbie or Judy. They want me to come in again and make a mask for this other fellow. I said, wow, it was totally unexpected. And so they bring out the other 3 drawings, all designed for Mark, all full-face drawings, full mask drawings. And they wanted to go with this one that looked exactly like Silence of the Lambs mask, with a very few changes and padlocks on the mask.
Right. Yeah, I mean, it's quite surprising that, considering the nature of the business, you wouldn't think padlocks had factored into a wrestling match.
Right.
Okay, in retrospect, from a business standpoint alone, if I just cared about the money, You can put another word in there. I would have made that mask. And Mick's career would have been about an hour and a half. Okay, but I would have gotten paid the same. It's fine. It's but I knew it was wrong.
Yeah,
it was wrong to make it. It was wrong to even entertain it. And plus, there's the fact that I'm making a copy of somebody else's design with a few changes. It's kind of like legal theft. It's illegal because there's a small change in it, but it's still theft. So I just told him, no, call Paramount. I believe they own the copyright, document them. And then I realized they knew what they wanted. They didn't know how to express it. So I said, tell me about this guy. Where does he come from? And they knew the history of this character. They had an idea. I kind of fleshed it out of him. And he says, what emotions do you want in this mask? Who is this guy? And they described him, and I wrote it down. And then I said, okay. I knew exactly who this is, who this character is. And one of my expertise in theater is comedy dell'arte. Italian theater from the 1700s. Okay. You've heard of Harlequin romance novels? Mm-hmm. Harlequin, okay. It all comes from Arlecchino, the bumbling, stupid servant from Lower Bergamo. He's so ignorant, he's brilliant. He's agile. He's rhythmic. He's earthy. He's all these things. And he loves to play, but I didn't tell them that, it's Arlecchino, but I took what they gave me and I did a sketch on a napkin that was in front of me with a pencil, and I handed it and they looked at it and go, yes. We'll be right back. And it was basically, they explained to me how Mick wanted the side of his ear exposed, because he's very proud that he got his ear chopped off. And so, okay, we'll do this. I felt it might, I'd have to do a couple of things for the balance of the mask and the engineering, because there's tons of engineering.
Oh, I can imagine. Yeah.
In this, and I, the other thing, they had his mouth shut. So in all the original designs, he would never have been able to open his mouth and talk. And from previewing stuff with for Mark, I realized that pro wrestling is at least 50 to 70% talking.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, easily.
Absolutely.
Yeah, and that's a big piece of it. So I knew I needed to create some kind of a jaw, So anyway, they took the image and said, we're going up to Vince. We'll be right back. About 45 minutes later, in this room, this conference room is like, with a cup of tea, my thumbs. They came back and said, how much, and we settled on a price. And of course, I assume it's the same deal as with the last one, and never assume anything. Okay, and then I went and started figuring out how to make it and how to engineer it. And I figured that I would develop a free-floating movable jaw. And the jaw engineering and the sculpture was very, very specific. It's like, and it needed certain things. So there's no hinge in the mask, so it's not like on a steady hinge. Mm-hmm. More or less, it's free floating. All the rivets that you see outside of the mask, except, around there, all of them are doing something on the inside of the mask.
Wow.
Right.
To make the free-floating jaw, so he can move his jaw up and down and sideways in every which way. And Judy came over frequently, 2 or 3 times, during the sculpture of it. And then the photo you see of me holding up the 2 masks before they were dyed and finished is exactly when I finished putting them together. And the reason there's 2 is because I know from theater experience, you make a set of masks for somebody for show. They're in the run of the show. And okay, they finish their last show, and then where's the mask? Somebody stole the mask. So, I've gotten calls 3 o'clock in the morning, 2 o'clock in the morning, say, Stanley, we're in trouble. Says, okay, yes, you need it. Showtime is Tuesday at 8. Okay, this is Sunday. We can do this. FedEx will be very expensive. You cover the FedEx. We got it. And there's a rush charge to pay me when I lose sleep, when I don't get to sleep very much. So I told him that, and I said, it'd be good to order a backup.
Mm-hmm.
So when you're performing all the time and you need a prop, it's good to have a second one. If you're on a national, international level, especially, and you have the budget for it, you get 2. You know? And if you're really smart, you'll get 3. Okay, So they got 2 of the Undertaker masks, 2 Mick Foley masks.
Right.
And then they had me do all kinds of costume work.
Oh, really?
Oh, right. Yeah.
Yeah, I made these wristbands, special wristbands, and there was a shirt, and Judy sent me some odd image of some symbol, it was clean cut, and then said, make it funky, So I made it, and so there was a patch here and a thing on his back, and and so I did all that work, and all together with the mask and that work, it was about 3 months.
Wow.
Okay, and generally, pro wrestling masks can take anywhere from like a month and a half to 6 months. Depending on the design. Sometimes the design, coming up with the concept and the design, can take months. Depending on some people, it works really well. It works really fast. Other people, it's hard to find. Or they, one problem in the design world is when people have a concept and it's based on every image they've seen on the internet. Okay. And so suddenly you're working on something, and then it says, oh, and here's this photo. Oh, and here's this photo. And I go, please stop looking at other photos. Because what makes it work is the energy.
Mm-hmm.
It's like, around me, I had lots of photos of Mark. I have lots of photos of Mick. I went through photos. I saw videos. So I got to know the energy. When they came in to make a mold over their face, I also measured their face. So I got to know them. I got to have a feeling of their energy. Because with a mask, I can design a mask that somebody can go out on stage with, and it will look like there's just a mask on their face. Or I can design a mask so they come out and you don't see a mask, you see a character.
Mm-hmm.
And the character changes.
Yeah.
So, that was true both for Mark and for Mick. I saw the characters. I designed a mask that they would be able to climb into and get to know. And then when I gave it to them, I also instructed them on what to do, how to get into it, how to approach it. So their prep would be right, because there's certain things you can do that fuck you up. Okay, because I teach performance. I teach mass performance. I've done lots of my own shows, solo shows for decades. 70s, 80s, part of the 90s. I know how to carry mask. I know stage. I know audience. I know what it feels like when you come into a house and you have the audience in the palm of your hand and you're playing catch with that audience back and forth. The bigger the house, the bigger the drug. Okay.
Yeah.
It is a drug. It's like when I first came back from studying in Paris in the 70s, I did mime clown bits during intermissions and sometimes opening acts for rock concerts. John Mayall, Miles Davis, Chicorea. Chicorea, I did the opening. I did several. And it was like such a thrill to have 3,000 people you're playing catch with and having fun with. So imagine going into your big sports arena that the WWF has rented, and it's full of people, and these wrestlers are playing catch with that audience. That is a powerful drug.
Yeah. It's funny you say that, because one of the things we really notice in the world of wrestling is how difficult it seems to be for a wrestler to sort of retire or sort of bow away from that. And I think that's a large part of it. It's a feeling that they probably can't replace in any sort of way, really.
Yeah. No. Well, it's like I've toured. I toured my solo show through the state of Montana. To all these schools and events I did. Iowa, Quad City, Iowa, Oregon, and various states. And you come back after a month tour, month and a half, 2-week tour. You've been treated like royalty. You feel amazing, okay? And if you don't do something to ground yourself, you crash.
Yeah.
And you can crash hard.
Mm-hmm.
The best thing you can do is go take a class in something you know nothing about that you're interested in. Okay. Just to realize that, yeah, you have to take out the garbage again. Okay.
Bring you back down to earth.
Yeah. Okay. Great. Great that all those people applauded you. Now, can you take out the garbage? Need some help here. And change Junior's diaper for me. Okay. No. But you need to ground. And in the education theater world, as well as the pro wrestling world, nobody teaches how to come down.
No.
What to do after it. Because it is a change. I assume it's the same in the sports world, in certain sports worlds, no, you're not a god. You were just, no, you still have to get in the same line to buy a quart of milk and cereal for your kid, or for yourself, Mm-hmm. No, you don't get to cut in line. But no, it's a mental process. But so coaching, then I've never charged for the coaching. I just put it in because I want them to succeed.
Mm-hmm.
So when you hear Mick talk about prep, well, this is where it came from. Okay, I doubt if he remembers what I told him. But the thing is you plant seeds.
Yeah.
And planting seeds so people understand it. So the listening to whoever the client is important. And being able to see them and feel them. I don't mean physically feel. Mick and I did not have any affairs. No, he did love my tea. This is he would tell me these stories when he would come back and, he was, before he joined the WWE, he was on some tour in Japan, really kind of rough wrestling tour. I forget what it was, but it was a bus full of wrestlers. And they were going from one gig to another, and they would have the TV on and the WWE. And suddenly, and Mick was sitting next to another wrestler, and pro wrestling bus is generally really noisy.
Yeah.
I know that only from stories Mick told me. Okay, not personal experience. So, the Undertaker comes on with the mask. Now, this is Japan, a lot of Japanese wrestler. The art of no theater and Kyogen theater, of mask theater, is highly regarded. It's so in Asian world, masks and theater are known really well. Mm-hmm. Everybody stopped talking on that bus. And then Mick knew I was going to make his mask, and I said, "Oh, don't worry, you'll be able to move your jaw." He was really concerned about. I said, I just happened to include that in some email or something to him.
Yeah.
I was really worried about that. No, that's not what we're making. So yeah. And well, the guy next to him, when he said, "Oh, the same guy that made his mess is going to make mine," and the guy turned to him and said, "You're a very lucky man."
Wow.
Okay.
That's amazing.
So
he was right. He was right.
Yeah.
I think. Like obviously one of the main reasons we reached out is we see the Mankind mask as being, at the forefront of wrestling masks because of what you said, that range of emotions that a character can, portray. If you think back to Mick when he made his debut as Mankind, he was playing kind of the schizophrenic, having boiler room matches where that was one whole different range of emotions all the way through to his kind of comedy character with Mr. Socko, and you got to see all that translate behind a mask, and we've never seen that before.
Yeah, well, and I saw him develop, and I saw, because I put a lot of Arlecchino energy. It's like in an old drama review, which some university bought and destroyed the magazine, but it used to be an amazing magazine. There was an article about the Balinese mask makers. They make two kinds of masks. One's for the tourists and one's for their festivals. The difference between the two is they put a soul in the ones for their festival. So I said, how the fuck do they put the soul in the mask? What the, and I thought about it, and of course it, how you have a question and it just sits in your mind and works, in the engineering and the artistic and the Mars rover landing stuff, it's like people have problems, and it's that silent time where you figure it out, or you wake up in the middle of the night and go, oh yes, that's it. That's the energy you put in. So it's the energy I surround myself, the music I play, and so I'm able to put souls in masks or not,
Yeah.
Don't piss me off, piss me off, you'll get a mask, but, there won't be, so, it's like, but, no, but doing it. So if there's different types of mask makers, and ultimately I like waking up in the morning and looking myself in the face, and being able to smile, and that's worth a lot.
Yeah, 100%.
Oh, definitely.
I think as well, though, going back to, like, as you were saying then about like that, you've got like a special blend of being obviously in the theater business, and you mentioned just adding that extra bit to the to the mask, for free, of showing them how to get into the mask and how to perform in the mask and stuff like that, which is not something that I imagine a lot of other mask makers do. With Mick's Mankind mask, was it just the two masks that they ended up?
No. It wasn't just the two masks. Okay, now I told them to bring them back every 6 months for a checkup. And I think they were afraid I was going to charge them, which of course I would have. Okay, because I didn't know, because I knew they wouldn't need upkeep. It's like every Broadway show has a wardrobe supervisor that keeps track of the costume, what needs to be repaired, what doesn't need to be repaired, what's fine. Okay. Mick was in charge of the mask. I made a special carrying case to hold its shape, to protect it, so it wouldn't get all smelly, and all these other things, and he used it for about 1.5 years. Then he decided he didn't need it, and he just threw the mask in with the rest of his wrestling clothes that he just used, and or were clean and were used, what can you say? Okay. After a while, I got a call complaining about the smell. He complained about the smell. Yeah, he stopped using the special bag. But also they didn't bring it back. And it's like Abyss. Of course, I tell this to Abyss, Chris Park. He sent his mask in for checkups, and sometimes upkeep and repair. Magnus, Travis Hefner, he took excellent care of his mask. He started his own pro wrestling theater in San Diego. It lasted for a decade. He was pro wrestling for a decade with his own theater show. Towards the end, he was thinking about getting another one, because after a decade, it started to, or send it in for some repairs, But, Mick, after 6 months before he retired from the WWE, I got a call. He figured he no longer needed the top strap of his mask before a match at Madison Square Gardens, which is huge, and so he just cut it off.
Oh no.
Yeah, and they let the other mask go into total disrepair. So I got a frantic call for an emergency repair, which had to be done quickly, which I did, and then they ordered another set of masks. So I made another 2. Well, during that, of course, Mick came and brought the mask. At that time, Judy, who found me, quit. I know in the UK you have health insurance as part. Here in the States you don't. Usually your employer takes care of it, unless you're contracted. Okay, so she got pissed off, but she is responsible for all those looks in those early days around Mick Foley time. She worked with him for 3 years, and she deserves a lot of credit. If you can find her, she's somebody that would be interesting to.
Yeah, definitely.
Definitely.
Yeah. But it's like Mick came up the stairs. Now, when I saw Mick, he was about half or third of the size, and he barely made it up my stairs. The first time he ran up my stairs. Remember what I said about the drug of Madison Square Garden?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I knew instantly what happened. And the WWE, 2 people replaced Judy. And they were about 30 minutes late. Okay. So Mick and I were able to have tea and talk. But it was strange. They always had me buy Coke and Diet Coke, which nobody ever drank. Okay. They had, make sure I bought it. It was there. I'd buy organic fig bars from Integral Yoga Health Food Store, which is closed, unfortunately, now, and make herbal tea. And when Mick was coming back for his first fitting, he was looking forward to the fig bars and my tea, It's like, so there's lots of joyful moments.
Yeah.
I think I was going towards some point that may have flown away. No.
Well, I mean, what I would ask, sorry, just in relation to the whole sort of issue at Madison Square Garden and the creation of the other masks. I mean, did anything, or his attempt to sort of cut the top strap off, did that sort of change the design practically, or was it sort of a remake of the existing for yourself?
It did not change. Well, when you cut the top strap off, the mask doesn't, engineering wise, the mask doesn't function. You know, it's like you figure, well, what's this big thing at the bottom of the car? You know, let me just get rid of it. You know, well, it's the thing that makes the wheels turn. Okay, you know, it's the same kind of thing. You know, so no, it did not change. Well, that changed. Cutting it off changed the design. At one point, you know, they were getting news, fan reaction that it wasn't Mick Foley under the mask, somebody else. So they wanted to rip the mask off.
Right.
So they prepared to do this, and they tried to rip the mask off, and they couldn't. Because I engineered it so it wouldn't come off. So he can comfortably wrestle and do it, because I assumed anything and everything can happen. He has to have clear visuals. He has to be able to breathe and talk safely. And nothing can cut or injure another wrestler or him. You know, so there's safety protocols I have all over the place.
Yeah.
Okay. So they realized that, okay, we have to loosen the straps in the back. So they loosened the straps in the back. They still couldn't take the mask off. So the third day, they actually took off the laces completely. Okay. And that was the only way. So that's how well it was fitted. It was fitted for Mick's face. It was built for his face. You know, when I've done lots of pro wrestling masks, you know, long distance without ever meeting them. Chris Park, you know, I am access to a network of life casters making life masks. And so, you know, I send them a choice of life casters, and they make a full bust. I mean, Chris Park, he had them cast his bust, which is still on my floor. It weighs 60 pounds, you know, of his bust. He had them casted in cement, so it was solid. Nothing was going to happen. It's still under my workbench. Okay. Okay. But I get long distance. So that's for fit, for specific fit, you know. Could I do it other ways? Yes, I could. I could do it quickly. I can do it quicker. I can cut corners. But it's just not in my blood. Okay, to do that. You know, I can make things quickly and quick turnaround. You just have to pay me not to sleep as much. You know. Okay, you know that there's an extra charge for that.
Of course.
You know,
I think it might be mentioned in Mick's in one of Mick's books. I'm not sure if it was his first one, but he said the original design for the mask was meant to be metal and had a hinged jaw. I don't know whether you ever actually saw that, whether that was one of the concept designs. I know you mentioned the padlock thing and stuff like that, but obviously that's not the most practical example to be used in a wrestling ring. But was that the case?
I saw the designs. There were 4. They were all for the Undertaker.
Yeah.
You know, none of them were originally for Mick. You know, as Mick explained in this other interview, which nobody has access to. Vince McMahon likes to get his money's worth out of something that he's paid for. So he had these other 4 drawings, you know, other 3 drawings that weren't used.
So imagine, with you mentioning Vince sort of being a man who likes to get his money's worth, and I can understand that on a level, but I imagine for yourself as an artist, it must be like the first thing straight away when you mentioned that they weren't designed for Mick, straight away that sort of becomes a, what's the word? Not a problem per se, but you know, it's not been designed for that person, and obviously straight away probably doesn't fit that character, you know.
Correct. That's it. That's it. That's it exactly. You see, from what Mick said, and I quote, I want to cover up his face. I'm going to cover up your face. Yeah, I'll accept him, but I'll cover up his face. And of course, in history of pro wrestling, when you cover up somebody's face with a mask, that means you have a short life as a character. That's usually what it means. Okay. The Vader mask was successful. The Vader mask is one pro wrestling mask I really respect. I think it's a great, wonderfully designed mask. But yeah, it doesn't. Those designs didn't fit. There's only one person that designed a mask for Mick Foley, and that's me.
Yeah.
And it was on the napkin. I have seen many other designs since, which is really weird, and I can tell they all came after I made the mask. Okay.
Yeah.
It's like, and I go, huh? Why bother? It's like, is there some thing I should know? Am I supposed to talk to some lawyers or some shit? It's like, okay. And I've seen a few of them. I said, huh? I never saw it. One, it's not designed for Mark, and so the input that Mick had into the mask design is he wanted his ear to show. Mm-hmm. That was his one request, but they may have shown him other stuff, but if they designed other things, they would have showed it to me.
Yeah.
And they didn't. It's like, and I've seen some really stupid things. I saw, one thing with a padlock, about this big. It's like a 3-4 inch padlock on the neck. It goes around the neck, right? Like that's going to really work. It's like, it's like, the stupidity is on such a level. It's, but I listened to Mick. I talked to Mick. I measured his face. I got his energy. I had photos surrounding me of Mick Foley. I would watch some of his wild videos. So you put that energy into the mask. So when he puts it on, he comes alive. And I put a lot of Arlecchino. And when I'm sculpting, I'm jumping around. I'm talking. I'm screaming. I'm doing all this stuff to put that into the mask. So it lives. Mm-hmm. And it works, and it's more fun. Okay. You make it with joy. It's joyful, you make it technically, it's a technical thing, it's like, so that's what I do, it's like, and it's fun, I enjoy it. I enjoy the creation, I enjoy making it come to life.
Yeah, absolutely.
But I felt partially responsible when I saw Mick climb those stairs, and we had a talk, performer to performer, one-on-one, and I was a little pissed off too. Because my client, not that he paid for it, WWE paid, but he's my client. I'm making it for him, I knew was physically in trouble.
Yeah.
And when 6 months later, when it made national news, it was on like network news, like broadcast, Mick Foley resigns. I breathed a sigh of relief. I said, good for Mick. And then when he started coming out with children's books,
yeah,
I said, good for him. It's like, I said, good for him. Good for Mick. It's like, he's moving on, it's like, great, but you see, and when he did things like come out from underneath the ring, I shouted for joy. He's got it. That's Arlecchino. That's an Arlecchino move. When he came out with Sacco, That's the Arlecchino Commedia dell'arte energy that I put in the mask. And you see, because you want a mask doesn't hide the soul, doesn't cover you up. It exposes you. It lets you free, or at least the ones that I generally make. You know.
No, definitely. I think you can so see it in like the range that he was able to display across all his characters that he portrayed with the same mask. It is phenomenal. You know.
And then when he started doing poetry, has any other pro wrestler read poetry for like 15 minutes during an international broadcast? I mean, you know, he was, it's like the mask allowed him to do that, you know, and then of course he dropped the mask and, you know, did his dude love thing and his other things, which, you know, of course, you know, it was the mask that masks can free, you know, and that's my training. Yeah.
Well, I was going to say, I think him trying the other characters was probably something that really emphasizes how freeing the mask is, because you get to see that duality between the other characters he is and sort of this character he becomes when he wears the mask. And I think it really emphasizes the point that like Mankind is a totally different character in and of itself, really, with when you compare to Mick coming out as Mick, or Mick coming out as Dude Love, or Cactus Jack, or
no, definitely.
You know.
I think as well, like while he found success with those characters, he only ever won the main title as Mankind. And it probably was, as you know, you've got to give credit to the mask as well for that.
Yeah. It's
that character.
Yeah. Well, it's pro wrestling is built based on a commedia dell'arte scenario. It's the same formula. You have a scenario, you know, more or less. This character has to hit this point, this point, this point, and this point. Okay. You know, you have lotsies, more or less physical bits. You know, you're going to do this move, this move, this move, this move, and this move, and this bit here, and there, you know. And then there's lots of improvisation within that, you know. So it's that improvisational life that really, you know, makes it happen. And a funny thing is opera singers. There's a lot of opera singers that are pro wrestling fans.
Really?
And the lines between pro wrestling and opera are very similar. There's two differences. One difference is pro wrestlers move a lot better than opera singers, or most opera singers, and opera singers that's a lot better than pro wrestlers. That's the only difference, you know. Yeah. Oh, and I did do one design thing that I didn't want to do, but I knew I had to do to satisfy the Silence of the Lambs thing. The only reason the bars are on the nose, those two bars, is that's a reference to Silence of the Lambs.
Oh, okay.
I didn't want to put them in. They didn't ask me to, but design-wise, I knew that is what would sell it. You know. I knew Mick wouldn't breathe as well, you know, but hey, Mick, you know, you worked it out. Okay. You worked it out. You know, yeah.
No, definitely.
Yeah, you know, but yeah. So that's a piece of pro wrestling or mask making and theater that I brought, and I think it changed some things, you know. And from what I hear is pro wrestling lost something, you know. It's missing something, and it could be that humanity, you know, some humanity, some humbleness, some earthiness, you know. It's like when it's all I'm the greatest, you know, it's like it gets boring, you know. It's like it becomes a monotone.
Yeah. I think the trouble is, I mean, all due respect to them, WWE have had very little competition for so long that the company in itself is now like it's going through that same experience of like that sort of godlike feeling, you know. And I think you're quite right in terms of the humanity element, because it's been a long time since they've been anywhere near grassroots in terms of wrestling.
Yeah. Yeah. an odd story, not an odd, but it's a humbling story for me. My father, the jazz pianist, that's what he is. He, mind you, that's not how he made his living. That's how he should have made his living. But his 18th birthday, he got his draft notice for World War II. He trained for desert fighting, and they sent him to the South Pacific in the military, in the army. And lots of jungle fighting. With a chow that moved. And all these other things. His best buddy, was the son of a famous pro wrestler.
Wow.
Who's like nationally or world famous pro wrestler. So that was his best buddy, and unfortunately, as my dad says it, some guy fell asleep on watch,
Yeah.
and his buddy didn't make it, But I find it interesting that my father had this strong connection, with this one of his best buddies, and suddenly, this theater person who does lots of theater and film stuff and comedians has been creating masks for the pro wrestling.
That's crazy.
Yeah.
Well, sorry.
Yeah, so a toast to my dad's best buddy.
Absolutely. I will
Indeed.
certainly toast to that.
Cheers. He's saying thank you. He's saying thank you and laughing. Okay. You get these messages,
Yeah.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.